renting versus buying your own home. Have you given it much thought? And the conventional idea is that, of course, everybody wants to own their own home. But is that the best way to go? Why do we want to do it? Is it just for the sake of just saying that we can own our own home? Is it for the privilege of going into debt slavery for 20 to 25 years so that at some point down the road we can borrow against the house to pay for renovations for the house? I don't know. Personally, right now, we are renting our own home, and we have been for about the last 5 or 6 years here now. We owned for many years, and we also own some rental property. We sold our personal residence, and we still have rental property that is generating some revenue, generating okay revenue. They're not huge money makers or anything like that, but they're carrying themselves, which is the main thing. And thinking back to when I started owning property, started in my early 20s, and the very first house that I bought, I rented it out. My wife and lawyer both thought, oh, that's weird, that was crazy. The conversation with my wife was a little more exciting at that point, but we're still together too, by the way. So the thing is, it is unusual to rent your own home and also own a rental property. People might say, well, yeah, that is weird. Why would you want to do that? Well, think about it. When it comes to doing any repairs on your own home, are you able to get a tax write-off for it? In Canada, here, you can't. I'm not sure what it is in the US. I know that the tax laws are a little different, especially when it comes to interest on a mortgage. Here in Canada, you cannot write off the interest on your personal mortgage for the mortgage on your personal residence, but you can on rental property. So there is a tax advantage right there. Also, when you do any repairs, when you go to replace the hot water tank, or you go to fix the roof on a rental property, those expenses are deductible. On your own personal residence, too bad. That is all out of your own pocket, and you don't get a tax break for it. So there's tax advantages to owning some rental property right there. Also, when it comes time to fix the toilet, that cost is on you in your own residence. If you're renting, guess who pays for it? If you got to replace the toilet, that's the landlord's cost, not yours. That's all included with the rent. And they say, yeah, but if you're renting, you're always going to be renting. You'll never pay off that mortgage. Yeah, okay, but you're always going to have to live somewhere, right? So whether you're owning your own home or whether you're renting, you still have to pay something somewhere. It's not free. Even if you're living in your own residence, you have property taxes, you have insurance, and I know that insurance rates have not gone down on properties in the last few years. They've gone nowhere but up. And in the home that we owned a few years ago, property taxes and insurance have gone up every year, whereas the rent where we've been living has been stable the whole time. Now, that's not to say that that's going to be the case the whole time, but there can be some advantages there. Also, at the time we sold, the job market was fairly shaky, and I was not secure in my job at that time, or I didn't feel that I was secure in my job. So we thought, well, you know what? Do we want to be looking for a job and paying a mortgage at the same time, and also watching the equity in our home drop further and further and further down? Because if you're in a situation where you're not employed and you're going to have a hard time paying your mortgage, well, the price of your property drops pretty fast because people can smell that you're in trouble. So you get some flexibility with renting, but if you also know that you're going to be, if you knew for sure that you're going to be living somewhere for 25 years and you were guaranteed that, and you were guaranteed a job the entire time, well, yeah, sure, of course it makes sense to purchase your own home. It makes sense to pay down that mortgage. The mortgage pay down part of it on your own personal residence is essentially a forced savings plan. So there isn't really a tax benefit there. The real benefit, or the real payoff that people are looking for, though, is due to the fact that over the last 50 years, real estate has generally speaking, in most areas, gone up in value. So a property that you would have owned, if you owned a property 40 or 50 years ago, chances are it's worth significantly more than it was when you originally bought it. So there's the capital appreciation part of it. The problem with that is that property values don't go up in a straight line. Where I am here in Alberta, in Canada, we've seen property values where there has been 8 and 10 year periods where the property prices stayed flat. There's times where it would have gone up, went flat, even dropped some, and then kind of went back up again. There's certain property classes that, comparing now in 2023 back to the last boom, the last peak of the last boom back at about 2007, 2008, in a lot of cases, property prices have not recovered to that high watermark that was established back then. So properties don't always go up, and because it depends on the time period that you're looking at. So you have to be careful there. Now, so it just depends on what you're after. It depends on your timeline. If you had nothing else to invest in, then you may as well buy a property and plan to stay there for a long period of time, because over time, generally speaking, you'll do all right. You'll at least pay down the mortgage, and so you'll be able to recover some of that out of there. And then chances are there probably will be some appreciation in the price. That's not guaranteed. With rental property, as long as it's managed properly, and if you buy it right, so that it's cash flowing, and I've made this mistake a few times on buying properties that were pretty thin on cash flow, expecting the value to go up. I'm going to pause that, maybe talk about that a little more in another video. But if you buy it right, that property should be profitable. It should take care of you in your retirement if you hold it for a long period of time and you just let the rent pay off the mortgage. Even if property values went nowhere for 20 years or 25 years, whatever it took for the mortgage to pay off, somebody else will be paying that mortgage down for you. And all of your expenses along the way are tax deductible. So it makes sense from that point. For me, in my head, it makes sense for me, with our situation, with what we're after, to rent the home that we're living in and own rental property. For me, it just makes sense. So what are your guys' thoughts on that? And have you given that any thought? That's the big question here. The other question I want to get to before I close this off is to consider this, because this kind of closed the deal for me in my mind when it came to the decision to sell our house a few years ago, is the fact that you never really own your own property, even if it's your own, even if the mortgage is paid off. You never really own it. What you own is a bundle of rights to that land, and those rights are registered on a title or a deed, whatever you call it in your jurisdiction. And if you really want to know, this is the question, the golden question here, if you really want to know who owns your property, just stop paying your property taxes for a while. You're going to find out who really owns the property then. So, interested in your comments there? Let me know. Owning versus renting your primary residence. What do you guys think? Anyway, we'll see you guys in the next video. You all take care. Bye for now.